Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. My 5-year-old daughter came home from school, knelt in front of me, and begged me not to send her back to nursery school. She said she didn't want to go anymore. I asked her why, but she just cried and shook her head, too scared to speak. I sensed something was wrong. I lifted her shirt and found her arms and body covered with tiny puncture marks. Shaking with rage, I took a picture and posted it on the nursery school parents chat group, demanding to know who had done this. Someone called Luna arrogantly replied, "I told my son to do it." She then sent me 2 more pictures. One was a wedding picture of her and my husband. The other was a picture of me, my daughter and my husband. "You homewrecker. You dared to steal my husband and have an illegitimate child. It's a miracle. I didn't let my son beat that brat to death." The group of parents exploded, full of insults directed at me and my daughter. Even the teacher tagged Luna and said, "Mason did well today. I'll make sure he gets a gold star tomorrow." Sent a smug emoji and mocked me directly. "If you're mad about it, come and see me. My son and I are still at nursery. On the way to nursery with my daughter." I sent a message to my company's legal team. "Prepare a divorce agreement in accordance with the prenup. I want David to walk away with nothing. My daughter was also attacked at the nursery. Get a team down here immediately. I want them to pay dearly. How dare a parasite like David to have a mistress and a child on the side?" When I arrived at the nursery with my daughter, the first person I saw was Luna standing outside. She was surrounded by other parents from the class. "Luna, you're so modest. If it wasn't for all this, we wouldn't have known that your husband is the CEO of the Martin Group. No wonder. I thought you had such a sophisticated look the moment I saw you. It's that high-class grace that comes with wealth. We're all here to support you today. We're proper mothers, and we can't let a low-class homewrecker push you around. Around, right? What good could come from a homewrecker's daughter? Mason really is the heir of the Martin Group. He's already standing up for the people at such a young age." Even the teacher humbled herself and fell all over Luna. Luna told me Mason's favorite food, and will change the menu at the nursery to suit his tastes. From then on, Luna basked in the praise. David had taken nothing from my family for years. To give him some responsibility, I gave him control of the smallest branch of the Martin Group. I never expected it to become Luna's source of pride and admiration. As soon as they saw me, the parents who had flattered them just moments before immediately frowned and looked at me with disgust. It was as if I was something dirty and disgusting. The teacher approached me, her face cold, and said, "Mrs. Walker, I've been instructed by the headmistress to inform you that Emily is being expelled, effective immediately." I glared at her and asked coldly, "My daughter was attacked. Instead of seeking justice for her, you're expelling her." The teacher responded differently. "This is an elite kindergarten. The children who come here, they all come from wealthy or aristocratic families. A child born to a housebreaker like you, staying here would only damage our reputation." Her expression darkened as I coldly warned her, "I suggest you find out who the real homewrecker is, and the illegitimate child, before you speak." Just as I finished speaking, Luna stormed over to me. She slapped me hard across the face. "How dare a dirty homewrecker like you flaunt yourself in front of me? Did you really think having a bastard child would allow you to take my place as Mrs. Jones?" A sudden slap stunned me. The other parents began to mock me, pointing their fingers at me. "You look respectable, so why stoop to being a mistress and having a child?" Some people pretend to be innocent. The moment they see a rich man, they go wild, desperate to spread their legs. Mistresses are the shame of all women, and their children are even worse. Insults and accusations attracted more onlookers, who started pointing at me. Some even took out their mobile phones to take pictures and videos, and spit at me. I took off my $1,000,000 coat and threw it in the bin, in the rubbish. Then I turned to face Luna directly. First you told your son to bully my daughter. Now you hit me in public. Who gave you the audacity to act so lawlessly? Luna replied arrogantly. It's only right for a wife to beat her lover. Besides, I'm the wife of the CEO of the Martin Group. Beating you and your filthy daughter is nothing. I could even take your lives and it wouldn't matter. The other parents chimed in. If you weren't a mistress, Luna wouldn't have hit you. You brought this on yourself. You're just a dirty mistress. Instead of keeping your head down, you're out here provoking us. A slap is the least you deserve. Yeah, you've got a taste for being a tramp, haven't you? Who are you pretending to be an innocent victim for? We're not like those men blinded by lust. Even the bystanders joined in the insults. Each insult was worse than the last. This only encouraged Luna. She glared at my car behind me, her eyes blazing with anger. You dirty woman. Spending my husband's money like it's nothing. How dare you drive a Rolls-Royce? A cheap mistress like you doesn't deserve this car. I hate mistresses more than anything. Every mistress in the world should die. As she spoke, she pulled out a key and scratched large across the surface of my car. Mistresses must die. I looked at the glaring words and said coldly, you'll soon realize the irony of these words. Luna flew into a rage. You filthy woman. Living off my husband's money and acting all high and mighty. Today I'm going to make you pay back every penny you've taken from him. She picked up a brick from the pavement and began smashing my car with all her strength. She didn't spare anything. The windows, the headlights, the bonnet, everything was attacked. Seeing this, the other parents were energized. They picked up everything they could find and joined in the rampage. They smashed my car with enthusiasm. After smashing the windows, they climbed inside. They slashed the seats and tore the interior apart. The once pristine luxury car was quickly reduced to a pile of scrap metal. That moment, one of the women opened the boot and gasped. Look, there's a bunch of expensive stuff hidden in here. Luna casually approached and pulled out a painting. She sneered at a woman who, selling herself, collecting art, trying to act all sophisticated. It's an insult for trash like you to own something like that. Something like that. Someone like you only deserves trash. With that, she tore the painting to pieces in front of me. After tearing it apart, she threw it on the floor and stomped on it. One of the bystanders, who seemed to know something about art, took a closer look and exclaimed, that looks like an authentic piece by James. I heard it starts at $300 million at auction. Lena proudly said. So what if it's worth $300 million? It's all my husband's money. Anyway, my husband's money is my money. If I want to destroy my own things, what's the problem? Her words left me speechless with anger. Let's not even mention that David was a destitute man. Penniless husband. Even when I let him run the Martin Group, he lost almost half the value of the company due to his incompetence. If he wasn't my husband, I would have fired him a long time ago. But Luna, and these other parents, actually see him as an impressive CEO. Every single one of them looks up to him with admiration. Led by Luna, the other parents followed suit, tearing up my pictures. They all started, and smashing the collectibles I had in my boot. I had bought these. I bought these items for a high price at an auction today. Before I could even place them, they were destroyed. Watching these out-of-control lunatics, I calmly took out my mobile phone. Why aren't you here yet? You're supposed to be in front of me. It was 5 minutes before I even got an answer. One of the parents grabbed my phone and smashed it on the floor. I tried to call for help. Where do you get the nerve? Pretending to be someone important, huh? She's probably calling one of her to put on a show for us. Ha ha ha. The parents laughed even louder, openly mocking me. I stared at my smashed phone on the floor and I said coldly, I hope you'll still be laughing so hard. In a few minutes, then I turned to the teacher and asked, you knew my daughter was being bullied at school, right? Didn't you? The teacher looked at me with disdain. So what? A bastard. The daughter of a worthless mistress is nothing but rubbish. Mason was just taking out the rubbish. What's the big deal? The parents present began to clap and cheer. That's why you're the teacher. You are so fair and direct. Exactly. This is an elite school. Not just anyone can come here. Why does a mistress's daughter need an education? Should she just learn how to seduce men like you did? Who knows? Maybe she'll get better at it and land a richer guy. Luna got even bolder. You see, this is what happens when you're a mistress. You and your daughter are destined to live at the bottom of society, hated by everyone. The scene was full of insults directed at me. The bystanders joined in with their jeers. The more they cursed me, the more Luna smiled. The teacher saw the moment to flatter Luna, Mrs. Jones. Jones, the headmistress, said, "If this situation is resolved to your satisfaction, he hopes that you will do us a favor. You see, we're planning to expand the school, and all the land around here belongs to the Martin Group. What do you think?" Crossing her arms, Luna replied arrogantly, "Don't worry. I'm very pleased with the way you handled things today. When the time comes, I'll just say the word, and my husband will give you all the land you need." The teacher couldn't stop smiling. "Thank you in advance, Mrs. Jones." "Luna, my husband has worked with Martin Group before. Could you keep us in mind for future business? My company is also looking to change industries. I'd like to have the opportunity to work with Martin Group in the future. Luna, here's a no-limit shopping card for my shopping center. I hope we can stay close." In a moment, the parents scrambled to curry favor with Luna. Each one tried harder than the next to flatter her. Some even went so far as to slip their bank cards into her bag. Luna reveled in the attention, radiating arrogance. She raised her chin, strutted over me, and smugly said, "You see, this is the power of money and influence. Someone like you, a nobody mistress, will spend your whole life spreading your legs, hoping for scraps from men. But me, I get to enjoy the kind of glory you can only dream of. I'll give you one day. Take your bastard daughter and get out of this town. If I see you messing with my man again, I'll bury your little brat alive." When she heard this, my daughter trembled and clung to me. "Mom, I'm scared. My foot hurts so much." Her voice was full of fear and pain. I took off her and saw that one of her toes was missing. The wound was terrible. There was even blood pooling inside her shoe. My heart felt as if it had been stabbed. My eyes filled with tears that wouldn't stop falling. I couldn't understand how my delicate daughter had endured so much without saying a word. Without saying a word. Until now. I glared at Luna. "Did your son do this too?" Luna looked at me, her tone indifferent. "Why all the fuss? I'm glad my son didn't take the life of that brat." Before she could finish, I slapped her hard in the face. All my anger was in that slap. Every ounce of strength I had. It made Luna stumble backwards. As I moved to hit her again, suddenly another parent grabbed my hair. The other parent came at me, punching and kicking. "You filthy woman. How dare you lay a hand on Mrs. Jones? Jones, are you tired of living? Yes, your brat isn't even dead yet. Your child is lucky. Mason taught her a lesson with trash like you. For a mom, she deserves whatever she gets. Even if it's death." Even the teacher kicked me in indignation. "Stop hitting my mom." My daughter cried and tried to intervene, but a chubby boy kicked her to the ground. The teacher patted the boy on the head and praised him with a smile. "Mason, you've always known how to punish wrongdoers. Such a good boy. Tomorrow I'm going to praise you in front of the whole school and give you a prize." Mason narrowed his eyes with a smug grin. "Chimpy, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to beat that brat every time I see her." I lay on the floor. Trembling with rage, I clenched my teeth. "You'll be sorry when you hear this." They burst out laughing, as if I had told the funniest joke in the world. Did I hear that right? A lowly mistress has the nerve to make threats? Hilarious. She actually thinks she's someone important. Mrs. Jones is the CEO's wife. Crushing her is as easy as crushing an ant. This worthless tramp can't do anything, so she just throws a tantrum. Ha ha ha, what a disgrace. If I were her, I'd have killed myself by now. The parents were holding me down. They mocked and humiliated me mercilessly. The bystanders weren't any better, spitting at me and hurling insults. I basked in their support. Luna kicked me in the face with her sharp high heel. Regret? I've never had any regrets in my life. I'd like to see how someone like you could make me regret anything. Just as she finished, a line of luxury cars pulled up to the school gates. One by one, men in suits quickly got out of the cars. The sudden commotion caught everyone's attention. The noisy crowd fell into an eerie silence. The parents who had been holding me down immediately let go. They straightened up and turned their eyes to the scene. Luna pulled her foot back. Her gaze was fixed on the convoy of luxury cars. He quickly stood up and helped my daughter to her feet. Under everyone's watchful eyes, a man in a suit walked over to the lead car and respectfully opened the door. David, dressed in a tailored suit, overtook him, exuding a charisma that immediately caught the attention of the crowd. His handsome appearance and distinguished caught everyone's eye. Isn't that Mr. Jones? Wow, even his entrance is so grand, and he's so handsome too. No wonder that shameless woman was trying so hard to cozy up to him. As the jealous murmurs grew louder, Luna proudly approached David. She slipped her arm through his. "Darling, what are you doing here?" she asked, smiling sweetly. David gave her an affectionate smile and replied, "Didn't you mention that you had a little at the preschool? Of course I came to support you and our son." Luna batted her eyes at him. She clearly enjoyed the attention. "Really, no matter who messes with me, you'll always be on my side." David didn't hesitate. "Of course, you and our son are my treasures. Anyone who dares to hurt you will have to deal with me." Seeing that, David was ready to stand up for her. Luna beamed with pride. The other parents were green with envy. "I've always heard that Mr. Jones spoils his wife. Now it's clear that he really does. Look at them, a perfect couple if I've ever seen one." "Exactly, I don't understand how some people have the nerve to try and break up a marriage. And she dared to mess with Mrs. Jones? Jones, he's way out of her league. Mr. Jones will deal with this. Let's see how this homewrecker holds up." Now, amidst the gossiping crowd, Mason suddenly ran up to David and threw his arms around him. Dad. David got down on one knee and scooped Mason up in his arms. "Hey buddy, your mom tells me someone's been giving you trouble at school." Mason grinned, his eyes narrowing into slits. "There was this little brat when I hit her. She almost knocked me down. But I really taught her a lesson. I even cut her toe." David pinched Mason's chubby cheeks and smiled approvingly. "Well done, my boy, you're really something. In the future, if anyone dares to hit back, you can hit them as hard as you like. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything afterwards." Mason nodded firmly. "Got it, Dad, good boy." After praising Mason, David turned to Luna. "Now show me who had the nerve to mess with our son." On hearing this, Luna immediately LED David through and pointed at me and my daughter. "Honey, it's that shameless mother and daughter over there." The first time I met David was at my own company. I was working as an intern at the time, starting at the bottom to gain experience. At that time I was ordinary, not particularly outstanding. I was just a nobody in the company. David was also an intern at the same time as me. He wasn't particularly bright and even a bit dull. But having grown up in a rural area, he was used to hardship. His work ethic was strong. He was the hardest working trainee, tirelessly focused on his tasks. No matter when I looked, he was always focused in front of his computer, totally absorbed in his work. I was impressed by his determination. Originally, he was in danger of being dismissed for not progressing. With my help behind the scenes, he was promoted ahead of schedule. He was so happy that day. He seemed to light up with energy and excitement. After becoming a full-time employee, he worked even harder. What I admired most was his resilience and his refusal to give up. So we gradually became closer. The more time we spent together, I realized that this seemingly quiet and reserved man could actually be quite witty. He often made me laugh out loud. Being around him always felt easy and comfortable, even when we were silent. His presence gave me a sense of peace. But it wasn't until a heroic rescue that we crossed the line from friends to something more. It happened one night after my mother died. I was in a bar drinking to drown my sorrows. After leaving the bar, a group of drunken men surrounded me. They harassed and taunted me. I was frightened and helpless. And that's when David appeared like a knight in shining armor. Even though he ended up getting beaten up badly by those drunks, he managed to get me out of danger. That was the first time my heart skipped a beat for this man who risked everything for me. For me, while I was with him in hospital, during his recovery, I couldn't help but confess my feelings. He was happy to accept, and so we began our relationship. During our relationship, I kept things simple. I acted like a normal person. We ate from street vendors, walked through parks. We watched films and visited amusement parks. Life was simple but happy. Later, I took David home to meet my family. When he found out that I was the daughter of the richest family, David became nervous and stiff. My father knew that David came from a rural background, but he didn't look down on him. He simply said that he didn't care about family status. Nobody could be richer than us anyway. He only had one condition. David had to marry me. I was his only daughter. My father didn't want me to marry into another family. I thought David might hesitate. He might feel conflicted or even refuse. After all, he was the only son in his family. Besides, marrying into his wife's family could be seen as somewhat humiliating for a man. But to my surprise, David agreed without hesitation. He even promised me right then and there that he would love me, only me, with all his heart. To show his loyalty, David even signed a prenuptial agreement that same day. The agreement said that if he ever cheated or been unfaithful, he would walk away with nothing. I was more than moved at that moment. After we were married, David was always kind and gentle to me. He looked after me in every way he could. Even though our daughter took my surname, he didn't mind at all. He treated her like the apple of his eye. He showered her with love and care. Give him more credibility out there. I even put him in charge of the Martin Group. I just wanted him to have more status and prestige. Even though he didn't manage the company well, I never complained about that. All I wanted was for the three of us to live a happy life together. As long as he could love me and our daughter with all his heart. With all his heart. Nothing else mattered. For so many years, I was immersed in the loving image David had created for me. I truly believed he was a good husband and a great father. Looking back now, all I feel is a deep sense of irony, and how foolish I was, when the truth that had been hidden for years finally came to light. The moment David met my eyes, his face turned pale and he froze. The arms that held Mason instantly went limp. Mason, who had been basking in his pride, suddenly slipped out of David's arms and fell flat on the floor. "Dad, what are you doing?" Mason lay on the floor crying his eyes out. Na hurriedly picked him up and gently comforted him. "Don't cry, sweetheart. Your dad is just really angry at the person who hurt you. He wants to stand up for you." Hearing this, the gathered parents nodded in agreement. "Look at him. Mr. Jones' face is pale with rage. He must be furious. Yes, a man might have a mistress for fun, but no one would let her disrespect his wife and hurt his beloved son. Yes, this shameless mistress must have crossed the line. With Mr. Jones, that lowlife is done for today. Get your phones out, we're about to see a show." Everyone was buzzing with excitement, waiting to see David's next move. But David stood there frozen, unable to move. Seeing David's lack of reaction, Luna suddenly had a knowing look on her face. "Darling, I know. She's the mistress you've been keeping on the side. You don't have to hide that from me. Don't worry, as long as you punish her properly promise not to see her again. I'll forgive you. Go on, I can take care of her now." Luna thought she was being so understanding. She was sure that David would act on her behalf. But David still stood there, staring blankly at me. No one noticed the beads that were forming on David's forehead. That moment, my daughter stepped forward and took David's hand. She looked up at David with her big innocent eyes. Confused. "Daddy, why do the other children call you Daddy?" Before David could answer, Mason pushed my daughter away. "You little brat, stop calling him Daddy. Looks like I didn't teach you a good enough lesson today." "Enough lesson today? How dare you take my daddy away from me? I'm going to beat you to death today." With that, Mason raised his fist, ready to hit her again. David finally snapped out of it. He grabbed Mason and threw him to the ground. "Get away from her." Mason hit the ground hard after David threw him. His elbows scraped the pavement, peeling skin and drawing blood. Mason's screams of pain filled the air. Luna rushed to pick Mason up and comfort him, before angrily turning on David. "David, what are you doing? What did Mason do wrong? Why did you push him over, that little brat? Or is it that in your heart our son isn't as important than some bastard you love? What's so great about this homewrecker? That she's got you under her spell?" Was seething. She fired question after question at David, but David ignored her. I crouched down beside my daughter and asked gently, "Emily, are you all right? Have you been hurt?" My daughter, who normally clung to her father, recoiled in fear. She curled up in my arms like a frightened kitten. She watched David with cautious eyes. I saw this. David's face turned at that moment, a black SUV, and several police cars pulled up to the side of the road. A lawyer from the legal department got out of the SUV and hurried over to me with an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Miss Walker. There was traffic, so I'm a little late. I have the divorce papers you requested." I also brought the police to deal with the incident at the nursery school. When I saw how respectfully the lawyer treated me, Luna immediately lashed out at me. "You dirty homewrecker. You think you're clever, don't you? Hiring actors to put on a show for everyone? You call yourself Mrs. Walker? Who do you think you are? You're not worthy." Luna spat at me as she finished. The other parents immediately chimed in to support her. Exactly, just a lowly mistress trying to act like a big boss. She really thinks she can be somebody, just because she's addicted. "David, wait until he gets tired of her. She'll end up on the street. And now she's got the nerve to call the police. This mistress loves to humiliate herself." I ignore her and go to the police. "Seriously, officer, these people have probably slandered me, attacked me, and encouraged their child to abuse my daughter. They cut off one of her toes. They also vandalized my car and destroyed antique paintings worth millions. I will not accept any mediation in this matter. I want it dealt with seriously. Hear my words." The once confident parents suddenly panicked, but a few of them, still stubborn, continued to shout, "Don't be afraid, everyone. We are defending what is right. By teaching this mistress a lesson, no one can touch us. Yes, we're defending women everywhere. Is that wrong? We've got everyone's support." The crowd immediately cheered them on, supporting their demands. Encouraged by the crowd, the previously panicked parents regained their confidence. The officer looked at the smashed car, and then at my daughter in my arms. He frowned deeply. "You caused a disturbance in broad daylight, destroying property and harming others in justice." After speaking, the officers began to take photographs and collect evidence. They call this evidence. Luna was completely unfazed. She folded her arms and said calmly, "Officer, the children are young. Normally, they can't control their strength when they play. As for the damaged property, all these things were bought by my husband. My husband's things are my things. What's wrong with me breaking my own things?" Her parents, who were present, couldn't wait to support her. "Everything here belongs to Mr. Jones. Why would Mrs. Jones have to pay anyone for breaking her husband's things? Who does this mistress think she is? What right does she have to demand compensation from the wife? She's so desperate for money, she doesn't even care about saving face." The policeman turned to Luna and asked, You say that these things belong to your husband. Do you have any proof? Luna immediately grabbed David's arm. She turned to the officer and said, "My husband is right here. Ask him if you don't believe me, darling, tell the officer." David yanked his arm away from her as if she were a plague, and screamed, "Get away from me." Luna stood there in shock, staring at David in disbelief. His reaction was completely unexpected. The others were just as confused. What's going on with everyone watching? David walked slowly towards me. When he reached me, he didn't say a word. He just got down on his knees. In a shaking voice, he said, "I'm sorry, Scarlett." David knelt in front of me. He apologized publicly and called me. The scene was so shocking. It left the other parents stunned. Everyone at the event was completely confused. Luna in particular was in complete disbelief, unable to process what had just happened. What's going on here? Why is Mr. Jones calling this mistress his wife? What is their relationship? The parents quickly recovered and bombarded Luna with these pointed questions. Her face turned pale, obviously shaken by the unexpected turn of events. After a long moment, she snapped out of it. In a fit of hysteria, she turned her anger on David. "David, what is this? Why do you call that homewrecker your wife? Didn't you tell me marriage was just a formality? You said as soon as you finished your work, you'd plan the most beautiful wedding for me. We had a child together. Now you're calling someone else in front of everyone." Luna completely lost control, unable to accept the reality unfolding before her. "Your wife, you told me I was the only one you loved. How could you lie to me like that? Say something." As she became more emotional, Luna grabbed David's arm. She shook him, demanding an explanation. David violently pushed her away and shouted, "Shut up! Don't you realize you're destroying my life?" She stumbled back in shock and stared at him, horrified at the stranger he had become. She had never imagined the man she loved could behave like this. But David had no time to worry about Luna. His only concern now was to save himself. Still on his knees, he turned to me. His voice was pleading. "Please, darling, I know I messed up. I'm begging you, just give me another chance." David had thrown all his pride away. His tone was dripping with desperation. I stared at him, expressionless, feeling nothing but disappointment. "Do you know? My mother ended her life because of my father's betrayal. Right, the thing I despise most is betrayal. Before we got married, you promised me that you'd love me forever, that I was your one and only. And now look at you." She pointed at Luna and continued, "You said you loved me, but you went and built a whole new life with her. It makes sense now, how you just happened to show up and rescued me in that bar. Afterwards, you insisted that I shouldn't press charges against those drunks, saying they had just made a mistake. When I took you home, you didn't seem surprised when you found out who I was. Thinking about it now, I realized that you probably had it in for me from the start, right? You knew all about my family's wealth, and you manipulated me to climb the corporate ladder, using my money to support your little side relationship. David, you really were playing the long game, weren't you?" I was so caught up in David's seemingly endless love for me that I never saw the truth. All those moments I thought were real were actually part of his carefully calculated plan. It was pathetic. I was so sure I'd found true love. My daughter and I had trusted this man completely, believing he was the most person in our lives. "Please, darling, I swear I love you. I'll fix this. I promise there won't be a next time," David begged. David clung to my hands, terror in his eyes, as if he really feared losing me. Luna was still trying to make sense of it all. I asked David in confusion, "David, why are you kneeling before her even though she's your wife? All this money and everything else belongs to you. You're the CEO of the Martin Group." Furiously, David's face turned red as he turned to shout at her. "Because I married her. Everything I have is because of her." Hearing this, Luna and the parents present looked shocked and frightened. It was only at that moment that they realized that they had really crossed the line. I looked at them coldly and said firmly to the police, I have to take my daughter to get her injuries treated. I'm going to see this through to the end, so please take it seriously." "Understood," the officer nodded and left quickly. Escorted everyone involved in the incident to the station. Before he left, he reminded me to bring proof of the value of the damaged items, such as receipts, along with the injury reports for my daughter and myself, so that they could be thoroughly documented. I took my daughter to the hospital to have her wounds treated. After her foot had been stitched up, I left her with the nanny. Then I went to the police station with the medical reports and the necessary documents. The station, the once arrogant parents now looked worried and defeated. They had only flattered Luna because they feared David. They thought he was the CEO of the Martin Group. They thought Luna was the CEO's wife. That's why they groveled and tried to cling to her. But now the woman they thought was the CEO's wife turned out to be the mistress they had always looked down on. And I, the one they bullied and attacked, was actually the one they should have treated with respect. This realization made them feel disgusted, as if they'd swallowed a fly. The way they looked at Luna now could have killed her. Luna looked completely defeated, as if the life had been sucked out of her. She had just suffered the biggest blow of her life. It wasn't just the massive compensation that she had to face. The bigger blow was that she had come here. She had come here today with the intention of confronting a mistress. She had loudly proclaimed her hatred of mistresses, only to find that she had been the mistress all along. Her once proud son had now become, in her own words, a shameful bastard. It was a reality she couldn't accept. The police carefully examined the documents I had provided and calculated the total damage caused by their destruction. It's 940 million. When they heard the figure, everyone's face turned pale with shock. How is this possible? Even if she's not a mistress, she can't have that much money. Officer, don't let her fool you. Yes, where would a woman get so much money? You really should investigate where it all came from. Who knows, it could be dirty money. She must have cheated someone. The parents refused to accept the truth. Go on. Her desperate attempts to defend herself. They didn't believe my money was legitimate and continued to slandered me. The officer scoffed. We've already looked into it. She's the daughter of the richest man. Her wealth is far beyond anything you can imagine. She's simply humble. And that humility has given you an excuse to bully her. The officer's words left her speechless. She added, the damage alone is enough to put you all in jail. Instead of questioning her identity, you should be concentrating on how you are going to repay her. She's made it to the settlement. 940 million was a staggering sum. For every single person present, they couldn't afford to pay, so they made more excuses. Some of the parents, still self-righteous, said angrily, "You've got so much money. Why are you coming after us? It was just a misunderstanding. Let's clear it up. There's no need to push us to the limit. All we did was destroy a car and some collectibles. You're the richest woman here. Don't be petty and hold that against us. Yeah, even if we hit you, you're okay now, right? No need to be so stingy about it." You spoke so self-righteously, as if they were smashing up million worth of property and assaulting someone in public. Someone in public could be, with a few words. Or maybe they thought that just because I was rich and didn't die in the attack, I should just suck it up and take the loss. I let out a cold laugh and said, "Weren't you all so brave when you were smashing things and hitting people? Now you want me to stop. What's the matter? You had the courage to break things, but you can't pay. You were so loud when you hit me. Why are you so scared now?" These parents, they think they are fighting for some twisted version of justice, pretending to defend women everywhere. But in reality, they were just trying to grab power and gain something for themselves. If they had just broken a few things, maybe it could have been discussed. They crossed a line they should never have crossed. You humiliated my daughter. My daughter is my bottom line. I will never forgive them. When they saw that I wouldn't budge, the other parents started to panic. They didn't dare argue with me anymore. Instead, they blamed Luna. "It's all your fault, you liar. You didn't even check the facts first. You spread rumors in the group. Exactly, you're the homewrecker. And you dragged the rest of us down with you by slandering others. When you had the nerve to call yourself Mrs. Jones. Jones, have you no shame? We got into trouble just trying to please you. You're the one who should pay for this mess. That's right, it's all your fault. Don't even think about asking us to help pay for it. 940 million in debt." Faced with the other parents' accusations, Luna finally snapped back. Without hesitation, "You bunch of hypocrites. How dare you blame me? If it weren't for you, all wanting to cozy up to the powerful, encouraging me to make a scene, would I have gone so far? When you thought I was Mrs. Jones, you were all over me, practically licking my shoes. Now that something's gone wrong, you've all turned your backs on me, haven't you? With your pathetic behavior. You were born to be lapdogs. None of you are getting away today." The parents and Luna continued to argue, and if the police hadn't intervened, they might have started a fight. After the argument, the parents started making excuses. They all claimed that they didn't break anything, that it was the others who did it. They all insisted that they weren't involved in the attack. Then the police showed them footage from the school's CCTV cameras, and under clear surveillance they finally shut up. Unable to deny their actions, each had to make amends, according to their role in the incident. Some begged their husbands for money, scrambling. Together they raised money in any way they could to avoid prison. After paying, they left in defeat. Others, however, received divorce papers from their husbands. Because of this chaos, unable to borrow money, they were arrested and imprisoned. As for Luna, she was the most active participant in the destruction. Naturally, she had the most debts to pay. With such a huge amount to pay, Luna was helpless. She turned to David. "David, for the sake of our son, please help me. This is too much money. Even if I sold myself, I couldn't pay it off. And if I go to prison, what will happen to Mason?" Luna begged, tears streaming down her face. She looked absolutely pitiful. David hesitated. Clearly torn, he looked at me and begged, "Honey, do we have to go this far? For the sake of our years together, let this go." "Okay," I looked at David coldly. "Huh, David, do you have any dignity left? Do you think you have any face left in front of me? When I think of our years together, it makes me sick to think of how you fooled me with your fake affection. I've already drawn up the divorce papers. As of today, we're through." I went to the police and Officer Luna not only destroyed my property, but also encouraged her son to abuse my daughter and cut off her toe. "Please add these charges, understood?" Without another word, I turned and walked away. And just like that, Luna and the other parents who couldn't pay were sued and sent to prison. My daughter's teacher was also fired and investigated. Because of this incident, the entire kindergarten was closed for reorganization. As for David, he left the marriage with nothing as agreed. I heard that Luna, less than a month into her sentence, got into a fight with the same parents in prison. She was forced into a toilet and drowned. These parents were sentenced to life imprisonment. My daughter and I went from being a happy family of 3 to a single mother and daughter household, with only each other to rely on. Although it took some getting used to, it was peaceful. Then one day I was out walking with my daughter. I saw David, unshaven and disheveled, lurking in a back alley. The moment he saw me, his face contorted with rage. He lunged at me with a knife, screaming madly, "You worthless woman! I finally found you." I picked my daughter up, frowning. "David, what do you think you're doing?" David glared at me and shouted angrily, "What do you think you are doing, you heartless witch? You have ruined me. You turned me from a CEO into a beggar, fighting stray dogs for food. My son was beaten to death by old beggars while he was out begging. And you have the nerve to ask me what I want. I was only with you for money. So what man doesn't want that? Why shouldn't I find true love when I'm rich? What right do you have to ruin my life over it?" What right do you have to make me lose everything?" Looking at his crazed state, I sighed and said sincerely, "David, you're still young. If you put down the knife now, there's still time to turn your life around." "Time? What time?" With that, David raised the knife and charged at me. "I've lost everything because of you. If I can't live in peace, neither can you. Once I kill you, your daughter and all your possessions will be mine when you die." David raised the knife higher and charged even faster. At the last moment, my bodyguard, who had been hiding, appeared and kicked David to the ground. 1930. Ever since I had learned that David was manipulative, I had been extra careful. I knew someone like him wouldn't give up easily. That's why I had a bodyguard who secretly protected me and my daughter every day. I never expected it to pay off like this. "Take him to the police station." After calmly giving the order, I took my daughter home. Staring at my mother's photo at home, I sighed deeply. "Mom, why were you so stupid? I know betrayal is painful, but it's not worth risking your life. For the sake of those around you, you had to go on." I looked at my daughter on the couch. I felt even more determined. We don't need men. Women can create their own future.